That's why I hit the button. Hi, everybody. Welcome to Warp Taste Podcast. I'm here with my good friend, and I've interviewed Eric Victorino before. And if you're not familiar with Eric Victorino, he's been in awesome bands like Strata, the Limousines, just to name a few. The dude has stayed busy. He's done stuff from art. He's written novels. I wouldn't necessarily call them novels,
Mm-mm.
but
Well, they're
you
they're
are an
par
acclaimed
partial
writer.
fiction.
Yeah, there you go. But Eric is a man of many talents. I thank you for your time today. Welcome, Eric. Glad to have you on.
Yeah, man, nice to be here.
Hell yeah. You're one of my favorite vocalists. You're one of my favorite lyricists. I think like Stay Young by Strata is like one of the most important songs for anybody to hear because it's just reminds you something that's very important. But I guess we're going to start out if we're going to talk about lyrics and you're a writer yourself. What is the writing process like for you? Like, how do you approach it?
Um, it's funny because we just started Limo started playing shows again after a hiatus, and I was taking Geo back to the airport after our show, and we were talking about writing new stuff and working on new stuff and getting in the right kind of mindset for it. And it struck me that most of my favorite stuff, I don't remember writing it. Like I literally don't remember it. I don't remember the process. Um, Gio remembered it though. He's like, no, you had on Very Busy People, you had the lyrics written out on a whiteboard, and you had lines bouncing from one rhyme to the other rhyme, and you're making like a network of rhymes within. And if you look at it, there are a lot of like limos. We do that where it's a complicated kind of like rhyme structure. It's not just the last syllable of every other line. It's like the third syllable in line one rhymes with the third syllable in line three, and like all this little kind of organized thing, which is weird because I'm not an organized person. So I don't remember the process of some of my best writing. And so it's hard to even like accept credit for it. I feel like kind of came to me and I was there as an antenna to receive it
Yeah.
somehow, but it doesn't feel like I sat down and created a thing,
Yeah.
you
So
know?
you would
So
say it's kind of like a stream of consciousness, kind of like improv, where it's just like the creative spirits in you in that moment, and you
well,
kind of
and
just
like
conjure it.
the old meaning of the word genius wasn't that the person who was doing the thing was a genius. It's that they were visited upon by genius. Genius is a spirit that goes from person to person and kind of like does the good work, and the person who's receiving it has almost nothing to do with it, like empty, or just a vessel who happened to be listening at the time, you know. Because there's a lot of stuff that I've written that I very clearly remember writing that's awful. Like a lot of my least favorite work that I've been responsible for, I remember writing it and it sucks. And
I
then
think the last
some
time
of the
we
good
had an
stuff, I don't
interview.
remember writing it.
So would that mean the Strata song? What is it? This is love. Was like I
Mm.
think on the last time we interviewed, you kind of like ragged on that song. I like that song, but
I feel bad saying I don't like it because there's people who have had it as like their wedding song, and
I was
I
gonna
would
say that
I
too.
wouldn't want someone trashing my wedding song. But we've all joked about how like when we repressed that record, we should have just left it off the vinyl just to delete it from history. But that song was one of the reasons I quit the music business the first time, was completing a song, everyone in the band hating it the second it's finished, and wishing that we could delete it, but not having the control. Once it's recorded and the labels heard it, it belongs to them. So they say, we're putting this on the record. We think it belongs on the record. And we're like, it doesn't. We all hate it. Please don't put it on there. And then the owner of the label basically saying, well, why'd you write it if you hate it? And it's like,
Yeah.
the artistic process, you make a lot of stuff you end up not liking because you're just open to stream of consciousness, and it's not all good. A lot of it, I'd say 80% of what you come up with is garbage.
I mean, you gotta there's people that write it's like for fun, it's a hobby, like it happens. As some I grew up, it was a hobby for me, but having it as a hobby when it came to like work, writing articles or anything that required like a lot of like words, make it sound great. It was easy because I had made it like, for fun at first.
Yeah.
So if you needed like 1,000, 2,000 words in like 10, 20 minutes, I could go just like throw it at you real quick. But I feel like a lot of that is, it's kind of like trite because it's just like I can write you a crap ton of words, but it's just so easy to me. Not all of it's going to mean anything. It's like a lot of embellishing and
Yeah, and
uh
that's the situation you're in when you're signed to a label and they say, give us 20 songs by this date. And
we're
then
going to
we're gonna
use 10 of them.
we'll whittle it down to 10. So you're like, okay, right off the bat, half of what I make is gonna be thrown away, right?
Yeah.
Um, but you kind of have to go into the creative process assuming that most of what you make is gonna be shit. Unless, I mean, I would think that even like the worst Beatles songs are better than anything I could make. So
I don't
like
know, man. I like
one
Octopus's
man's
Garden.
shit.
Number 9, dude. It's so good.
But when you listen to like the Beatles channel on satellite radio and like you'll hear some Beatles song you've never heard before, and it's still kind of garbage compared to the best ones, but it's still way better than anything you could ever come up with. And it's like mind blowing, like
I
how they
mean,
could make so much stuff.
Beatles were making music long enough where they could just try out every music mode and all the like, templates to the point where it's just like, did we need a song that had like a dude saying number 9 or number
Yeah,
8 or
well,
whatever? For like,
check that off the list. Yeah, we got that
we
now.
did it. We did the song where we just say number 8. Just
Yeah,
like, oh, but I mean,
that'd be a fun way to write a record. Just come up with like 10 completely insane, like unrelated topics.
oh
Write a
yeah,
song about each one.
make it and it's all noise. It's like sounds from Starbucks and the dishwasher and the car keys jingling.
Yeah,
And
I'm sure
I
someone's
mean,
doing that.
if you
That's
make it night course speed, man, I'm sure it'll find an audience on TikTok.
that's going to be after AI takes over. That's going to be just like found noise will be a whole genre that mainstream loves because it's not AI at that point.
Like, here's a bunch of saturated textures. Enjoy.
Yeah. Here's what it sounds like outside since you haven't been outside in months.
Since you live inside your plastic bubble, we have all these recycled air noises. You can hear
Yeah.
what wind sounds like. You remember wind?
Remember dogs? Here's a dog barking.
Like, well, in today's news, Chernobyl took over. But but let's see. So you're doing Limousines again. You guys were on a hiatus for a little bit. You guys were dropping songs like, little tidbits through the years, but nothing like full-fledged like return, like playing a string of shows like you are now. How does it feel being back in the saddle of live performance?
It's crazy. I don't know if you saw that I posted that video of me with my daughter on stage.
What it's all about.
It was the whole reason I wanted to. I mean, I've gotten to do a lot of really great, fun things in my life, and like a lot of once in a lifetime opportunities, and just like I'm not hurting for dreams I never got to accomplish. So one of the things though that was eating at me for years was like my kid's not going to know me, as a musician, as an artist, if I'm not making music and art. And I talked about this in a news interview locally before the show, but I retired. Like just said, I'm not gonna, no intention to do music anymore. And um, my wife's grandpa Wayne passed away in February of this year, and he was a local country music guy, um, kind of popular locally, just like when a local band gets big, right? But in country music in like the 50s and 60s, and he up until like the week that he died, he was sitting on his couch and he'd bust out his guitar and play a little bit and sing, and he had this most distinct, like beautiful West Virginia voice. Um, and I always admired the fact that he wasn't like obsessed with the past, but he was proud of his past, and he wanted his to share his love of music with his kids and his grandkids and his great grandkids. Because my daughter got to sit there and watch him play guitar, on his couch,
Yeah.
and every time he would do it, it would just kind of hit me like, man, the only way my grandkids or my actual kids are going to understand like who I was as a musician is through like photos and YouTube or something. So that kind of got this like guilty feeling going where I'm like, I can still do it. I'm not like, I'm definitely getting older, but I'm not incapable of performing. And the only thing really holding us back was me and Gio just needed to work on our kind of personal relationship. And when you have a two-man band, those two men need to get along, you know?
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's not going to work out. In a four-piece, you can kind of like get along with one of the guys, and then there could be these little subgroups within the group. But in a two-dude thing, it's got to be communication and friendship and respect.
Mhm. Yeah.
And we built our relationship off of mutual respect. I loved his work before I even knew who he was, and he wanted to work with me before he knew who I was. So um, we had to kind of get back to that point of just like talking about a lot of issues from the past, and respecting each other as grown-ups now, as adults.
Well.
And he's a great uncle to my kid, and
Oh.
we took a big pay cut to go play this show in San Jose because it was a daytime show outside that I knew I could bring my kid to. And
Mm.
and I remember Gio just saying like, you know, I'm losing money by coming up to San Jose to play the show, but I'm doing it for Evie, because
Mm.
he wanted to see her on the side of the stage watching her daddy play. So uh,
Oh.
that just a lot of emotions that night. I literally was like holding back real tears trying to play the next song because that was one of those things I always wanted, and I kind of gave up on the possibility of it because I thought I wasn't going to play shows anymore. Um,
Yeah.
because for years we'd only played that Christmas show every year.
Yeah.
So now we've played two. We're doing another one on the 1st of September. That's our actual first like headlining gig in
Nice.
years.
Where
That's not a
where's that?
Christmas show. That's at
Where's
Pop Scene, San Francisco. It's like we played our album release party there. It was kind of like our kind of home base back in the day.
yeah.
And Aaron Axelson, the guy who kind of discovered us and blew us up in the Bay Area, he's DJing with us, and it's just going to be like a good old times kind of thing.
That's what's up. That's hella cool, dude. And for those like unfamiliar, I remember when the Limousines blew up. It was MySpace, very busy people. All of a sudden, that
Yeah,
song was everywhere, and
that's
that was a MySpace profile song if I ever heard one. That was just, I got the Donnie Darko reference and everything. The music video
yeah,
was
yeah,
cool as hell too. How
yeah. The way,
like
go ahead.
how did that make you feel though? Like, because I know Strata, you had your peaks and your valleys. You're on the Punisher soundtrack, and you're doing Need for Speed Burnout or whatever. Like, you're on soundtracks like that.
I
And,
don't even know all the things we were on. They were throwing us on so much stuff.
but I mean, hey, it happened. But
Yeah, it's great.
that was a different kind of like, because I feel like Limousines was very organic when it began because you used your online presence in the MySpace days, which is still the same today because there's people that think that, the rise to infamy and fame and like the MySpace days is totally different from now, but it's usually, well, you just got to be online a lot and you have to communicate with a lot of people and just try to get your music out there. And
Yeah,
sometimes you do a well enough job where one of the people that you convince to listen to your song has like 60 friends that'll listen to that song and they have 20 friends that'll share it. And it's just like, that's still how it's done today. It's a little different because it's just all spread out. It's not one hub like MySpace was, but
right. I miss MySpace for that. But word of mouth has been a thing since, it's not an internet thing. That's just always been
yeah.
that way. And yeah, I mean, the way the MySpace thing happened with us was we would just put up partially finished songs. Like Gio would send me a beat, I'd sing on it, and the way I would get it to him would be to post it to MySpace. He would listen to it along with whoever else happened to listen to it, and it was always downloadable. So people got multiple versions of songs and they could download them.
I
And
miss that.
it
I
was so
miss, I
cool.
miss, it's such a process nowadays. It's like, it's got to be super clean. It's got to be super pristine. It's
No,
got to
I
be,
think that's why there's people blowing up on TikTok where they play 15 seconds of a song, and now there's millions of people who want to hear the rest,
mm-hmm.
like Noah Khan and all that kind of stuff. But the way we had a similar experience when we put up Very Busy People. It was one of the versions. It was like version 2 maybe that didn't have a bridge, didn't have the final chorus, and the guys from Alt Nation found it. Uh, they downloaded, they started playing it all over the country and by extension all over the world. So this unfinished demo was suddenly popular. And I don't know what the stats are. I know it was in their top 10 for the year. And it was like, I had to get in touch with them and say, hey, Jeff, his name's Regan. He's the guy who runs that whole channel. And I was like, thank you so much for playing us, but can you hold off? Can I give you the full song when it's done? Because this one's not done yet. Because he was playing the MySpace version that he just found. I mean, that's I guess the old equivalent to what like a TikTok, just a snippet of a song would be.
Yeah. It's kind of like, because back at like, our modern era, it's TikTok that blows stuff up nowadays, or it's a YouTube
Yeah.
video that goes viral or something like that.
And
Uh,
I don't have an account with that. I don't have time to
yeah.
like every
But
new social media thing that comes up. I'm just like, I can't do it. Too much.
yeah, I think they tried to push threads or something, and I made one. I made like a month's worth of posts, and I was just like, this is not going anywhere. This is dead. If I want to, I got a couple other dead social medias already. I'm good. I don't need another one.
Yeah.
If it blows up in the future, sure, I'll come back, but I don't have time. I'll just focus on the big three, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. That's about all the time I got in the week because I got to juggle. But I mean,
It's a
that's
lot to do.
nowadays. I think when you broke into the music scene and like, you started seeing success, that was still when the power of the radio was still around.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
When Strata got signed, we were one of the last big deals. Or our
mhm.
record deal totaled, close to $1 million. It's like 800 something $1,000, and and then we racked up a bunch of touring expenses after that. But like, bands nowadays jump at the chance to sign like a $50,000 deal.
Mhm.
It's crazy.
Well,
So
it's just
back
there's,
then, the record
yeah,
label still had a lot of power. The
yeah.
the
Alt metal
publishers had a
was
lot of
kind of
power.
just like new metal and alt metal alternative kind of like still has like staying power. It hadn't been superseded by like EDM and rap yet. Like rap was
Right.
super popular, but rock still had a place in the mainstream, which I don't think exists now. I think even at the highest level, like the most successful, like any rock metal band, I think it's more of like a niche underground vibe to it, no matter what. Even like
Yeah.
Metallica and Pantera, it's like yeah, those bands are super hecka popular, but I feel like it's either because of Stranger Things or because everybody's grandpa and uncle and dad likes that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of young kids like them sort of ironically.
Yeah.
But like probably the biggest, most famous person playing a guitar right now is either Harry Styles or Post Malone, right? They're not like
Mhm.
actual metal or like rock bands
Yeah.
anymore.
I mean, Post Malone has like I remember
I
there's the
I
the whole
loved him.
story. Yeah. He tried out for Crown the Empire, the metalcore band from I think they're from Australia. But he tried out, but his guitar string broke during the tryout. So they were like, sorry. you, you
Yeah,
you don't
man.
have good equipment, man. You just can't be in the band. And then he goes off and celebrate. Congratulations.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That
it's
see,
it's
that's his mindset right now is kind of like, you know, that's it's sort of how I feel. Like he seems to be, I don't know the guy personally. Geo's met him, but he seems to be personally doing well. He seems to be respecting and appreciating like where he's at and having like genuine gratitude for the situation he's in. And he seems to be appreciating the fact that he survived what he might not otherwise have survived, that whole
yeah,
last few years for him. So I sort of I can relate to that in different ways. Like,
yeah.
you know,
Nothing
uh,
wrong with that.
every second that the last couple shows, like every second I've had on stage, I felt really um, I've really appreciated it. And because I
Oh
didn't
yeah.
think I was going to do it again. So,
I feel that way every time. Like it's a weird outlet, 'cause I don't have vices. Like I smoke bud, I smoke cigarettes, and I don't like drinking. I don't like hard drugs and stuff like that. But the only feelings I chase in this world is getting a cheeseburger every once in a while
mm,
and getting on stage. Just that rush of being able to scream, sing, just be on stage, performing with the homies, my own band, just doing a little guest spot. The feeling is you can't. they can't replicate that. It's just
Yeah,
feeding off energy, just the energy with your friends, the camaraderie. It's just
I used to say it's like skydiving, like the actual feeling of the anticipation of the moment, and then because there is that huge divide in the way you feel from like if you're playing at 9 o'clock, right?
mhm.
8:50 to 9 o'clock. I can't even describe what that 10 minutes is like. It's amazing, but it's also horrible.
Yeah,
And everyone has their own little way of dealing with it.
yeah,
You know,
nerves.
people disappear. People go smoke something, or they go drink something, or whatever they do. I like to stretch and take deep breaths and just kind of like try to calm down.
Oh yeah.
And then there's you break down that last moment, that minute as you're walking on stage. That feels completely different than the 9 minutes before it. And then the second that first notice hit, it's like a roller coaster ride, like all the emotions that you feel while you're up there. And it's a thing that I don't think anyone else. It's like if you have not jumped out of an airplane, you don't know what skydiving feels like. And if you haven't performed your own material in front of strangers on a stage, you can't imagine the feeling of it.
Whether it's 5 people, 20 people, or 100, or like a packed house, it's the same
Thousands,
feeling.
and to understand that thousands of people is a lot easier than tens.
Yeah,
Playing in front of 10,000 people is a lot easier than playing in front of 10 people, I
yeah,
think.
because you can hear their disinterest.
Mm-hmm. You could see it on their faces
Yeah,
individually,
you can hear it between sets. You're like, all right, cool. And
Yeah. And that's one of those things no one will ever understand is like if they haven't done it.
yeah, it's I highly recommend if anybody like watching, listening, or happens upon this clip on any of the social media that you use, if you want to go do music, just do it.
I
It's
think a
the
lot
only
of,
person that can stop you is you.
can you imagine being like a teenager right now and knowing that like everything you do is documented and it's all going to stay there forever? It's going to be on the internet. And like, you got to be in some really shitty bands and you got to write some really shitty songs and make really bad mistakes on stage. And like, you know, I
It can
think a lot of
become a
people
meme.
are, they're probably, yeah. Can you imagine that? Like you have big dreams and you're on stage and maybe you slip or something and now you're a meme and the
Yeah,
whole world laughs at you and you're just like, fuck it. I'm going to give up. And the
yeah.
pressure, I don't envy kids of this, generation right now.
Oh
Like,
yeah. Even in the last 10 years, like you've seen the meme, I'm sure, like the what the F is up Denny's meme, like
no,
the
maybe
band,
not.
the hardcore band. There's like just a hardcore band playing in Denny's. Like, what the fuck is up, Denny's?
I love it.
But
I felt like that before.
yeah, so they're playing in a Denny's,
Yeah.
but everybody knows the meme. But unfortunately, you ask anybody, like, what's the band in that meme? Most people don't know that it's Live Without, who is from Texas. They're like a really cool band. They've been around for 10 years. That meme's been around for like 10 years. And it's just like, it's a weird correlation, like the modern, because, back in the day, you go on MySpace, you push all your stuff, you get it out there. But
Yeah.
like, even if something does get out there, you could be that guy that slipped. Everybody knows that you're that guy that slipped, but they won't know who the band was. Like, you're playing for your awesome band. You poured your heart and your soul. Maybe you slipped, but everybody just knows you as the guy that fell. They don't know your band. So it's kind of like it's a strange catch 22 with how
Yeah.
fame can blow you up. It's just like you can just
Yeah.
be known for your fumble and not even the music that you were playing. It's scary.
Yeah. And I think about all the different things that have happened to me on stage that like I literally shit my pants on stage one time. That's not on it's not on video anywhere. It's not on Instagram. Uh
No, it's on
I
the
well,
Warp Taste podcast now forever.
one time I fell. I mean, I didn't visibly shit my pants. It wasn't like the audience could tell, but it was during. Do you know the song "Piece by Piece"? How it opens with that big scream.
It's my pen.
No, this is like this starts off with this big like yeah, and through the megaphone, and I was having a day, and that happened to me. Um, I had to. I had to do the whole show with like knowing that had happened 40 minutes ago, and but right when it happened, I worked my way over to my guitar player Ryan, and I whispered in his ear, "I just shit my pants." So like, yeah, luckily,
That's good. That's good advice for young musicians. Remember, if you slip or you shit, the show
just
must
whisper
go
it.
on.
The show goes on. Don't like, what would have happened if I went on the mic and said, "Hey, everybody, I shit my pants." Like
I'll be
that would
back.
be. So it's like when you make a mistake, you don't say, "Oh, sorry for these technical difficulties," and like, because then you're pointing out the problem. I remember learning that, like, oh my God, if there's a problem, I just pretend there isn't, and most people in the audience won't know.
Yeah.
But the moment you stop and say, "Oh, excuse our technical difficulties," everyone's going to look around and be like, "Which technical difficulties?"
Who did this? Who
Yeah,
shit their pants?
who shit their pants? So that happened, and then one time I fell through a set of speakers, and it was cartoony because it was the size of my body except for my arms, and it was taller than me. So basically, I walked forward thinking the stage continued, but there was really like a break in the between the big subwoofers and the stage, and there's just like crevice that was the size of
Eric.
my body,
It was
my
Eric
size.
sized. It was Eric
So
sized.
I'm singing, and like I just drop, and it goes like this. So I'm stuck, like with my arms up, and these guys had to like grab me by my shoulders and pull me out of this hole. And
Like
I'm sure it looked hilarious, and luckily it was probably in like 2003. And if one person had footage of it, they've never uploaded it to the internet, and that's great.
and if it is uploaded, it's potato quality. You won't be able to tell what's going on. It's like where
Yeah,
did
it's
those
like
squares go?
that's not me. Those are Legos.
Those pixels went into a hole.
Hmm.
Hell yeah. But I mean, count your lucky stars that you came to prominence when you did. You were
Yeah,
able to bypass and avoid having some of your most embarrassing moments not documented. And if
yeah.
they
All,
weren't documented well.
all the mistakes the kids make these days are in 4K and
Crystal clear
yeah,
quality.
HD mistakes saved
Oh
for
yeah.
posterity.
There you go. That'll be your TikTok name.
HD mistakes.
They
Crystal
ain't
clear
ready for
whoopsies.
you.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, dude. But so you played shows recently. Who opened? Did you guys just like play by yourselves, or did you guys play with? You have openers or headliners?
The first one was just a friend's birthday party, and
Yeah,
my buddy Dino that plays drums in the band Dredge, he was the DJ uh, before and after us. It was kind of like a warm up thing, but they did us the pleasure of renting like a full on PA and making it feel like a real show. So that was a good warm up, um, a good way to get back on stage. And then the next one was like an outdoor music festival thing. And the singer for Santana, who is not the Matchbox 20 guy, he opened, and then we played, and then CeeLo. It was very strange, weird lineup, like a very
the,
sweet kind of jazzy hip hop thing.
it makes sense that you guys played with CeeLo Green. It makes total sense. You're in the rock
Yeah, I
and roll
guess.
history. You're in the history books.
Yeah,
You're a
we're
little note. Last music
footnote.
video played on MTV. I mean, come on, man. It
Yeah,
makes sense.
yeah. So CeeLo, I didn't get to stick around and watch him because I was driving Geo back to the airport, but we did get an email forwarded to us by the organizer of that event from a 90-year-old attendee who said that we were the worst band he's ever heard because the synthesizers were so loud he couldn't hear the musicians, which is funny because like the Limousines, that's what we are. It's like
That's what you are.
we're tracks and synths and samples, and like my friend Carrie plays drums on top of all that somehow. I don't know how he does it,
Maybe
but
that's what he's
I'm
complaining
not
about.
sure. I'm just not sure which musicians this guy was talking about. Maybe he was hallucinating or
He's
something.
like, I can't hear the drummer.
Yeah, he was hallucinating Duke Ellington in there, and
Yeah, I think Wilford Brimley came by to visit him.
you want to talk about oatmeal and diabetes.
Yeah, it was a casual conversation that just wasn't met. It didn't reach its full potential. Unfortunately, I'm sorry that 90-year-old man was unhappy seeing the brilliance of the Limousines. I would kindly trade. I would watch that. I wouldn't have complained.
I'm I have to respect him for going out.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm going to be seeing bands when I'm 90. Probably not.
You're probably sleeping, napping, and eating cheeseburger. Far too old.
Yeah, with my little fruit like pouch or something like a puree.
Yeah, my jamba. Hell yeah. So let's see. Um, I know Strata was releasing music there. You guys were doing kind of like a more grunge, kind of like, a little more like akin to like influences of like the 90s, more in comparison to like the alt metal sound that you guys kind of had for your first record and that more progressive, like indie rock sound that you had on your second.
Yeah.
Um, were there ever any plans to like make like a full album of that, or was it just the singles just to get some ideas out, kind of gauge the response, see how people feel?
How people feel has never really been relevant to us. Um, like the response has never been relevant to us. I know a lot of people probably say that, but I mean it. Like we've never made anything, and we've never made anything, and then kind of like based our opinion on that material off of the response it got. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
the fact that like if you look at our Spotify, probably piece by piece has 7 million plays, right? But I don't feel like we would ever sit there and say, well, let's write another song like that because that's the most popular one. You know, the songs that did come out recently, we have some that we didn't finish that we were kind of messing around with. Basically, like they all felt a little bit different because we are all kind of feeling different. And one moment we want to just go heavy and because we're frustrated and it's fun to just like let the anger out. And then the next moment you feel your age and you're like, what the fuck are we doing? Like we should just be doing ballads and piano and like soft stuff. Um, that's always been the problem with our band with Strata is it just like we never really stuck to any one thing. Um, we could never agree on what was cool at the time. Like uh, a lot of the bands, contemporary bands to us that I love now, I kind of refused to listen to then. I had never even heard, like even like Circus Survive and stuff like that. I wouldn't even listen to it because I didn't want to be associated with screamo at the time,
Mhm.
you know. But I also didn't want to be associated with like new metal. I hated that we were always kind of considered like a new metal band. The 90s influence that came out during the making of God, I can't remember the name of it.
Was it Around the Bend?
Around the Bend. Thank you. God, I would not have come up with that. That was like way in the back of my head. Um,
It only came out like 3 years ago. That's all right.
yeah, but the way that song kind of came out was like that felt so genuine to us, and the
Mhm.
that whole batch of songs that came out really felt like who we were supposed to be the whole time.
Yeah.
Um, because it had a really pretty moments. My cousin Johnny was playing piano with us and kind of like added this melodic part to it. And I really feel like if we wrote those songs a few years back, it would have been popular maybe. But I'm kind of most proud, I think, of those songs, that little batch of songs that we put out, and the ones that we never actually finished and put out
Yeah.
uh, before COVID kind of interrupted. But COVID fucked us up because we were about to really start like giving it one last shot, and going out there and doing stuff. And we had signed with a big manager, and we had the interest in like possibly jumping on a tour and making some stuff happen. And then when COVID happened, it kind of like put everyone at home. I would watch all these people posting stuff like, "Oh man, I miss being on the road. I miss a stage," and I would feel bad because I'd be like, I don't think I want to do that anymore." You know,
Yeah.
so kind of like reprioritize. I learned how to cook. I love cooking now. I got a job in government, so I work in the Limousines. We have a song about one of the lines like get hired, work behind a desk in a high-rise filing cabinet in the sky. Like that's what I got, and I love it. I love the security of knowing that I could pay for my kid to be safe and healthy and happy. And yeah, I feel like right now I'm doing music for the right reasons, maybe the first time ever.
Yeah.
It's not like essential to my health and I'm not like pouring out my deepest, darkest pain I'm not using it as therapy. I'm just really enjoying it.
Yeah. I mean, if I could speak freely as a fan of Strata, if you made Piece by Piece Part Two, I'd listen to it. And you could just make it a song about talking shit about Piece by Piece. It doesn't matter if it's got all those plays. We didn't want to record Part Two anyway. But I'm just saying,
I
I
don't dislike the song. I just feel like, you got to think like that song was written 23 years ago.
oh yeah. And 23
And
years, I mean, the number 23 is a very interesting number if you're into numerology. But I mean, just from like fan perspective, like I always
yeah.
like part two songs. You know what I mean? Like James Brown did part two songs, and are we any better than James Brown? I'm just kidding.
Oh, now I want to look that up.
All right. I mean James Brown. That's like I there's plenty of bands that have always made like part two or but they make part three and they skip part two or whatever it is. I've always liked sequels because it's like there's a band He Is Legend. They have like a
Yeah.
lyrical device over they call it like they have a series of songs that deal with the gardener, and it started out with like China White part two, China White part three, and then they stopped doing them numerically, and you had to kind of find all these songs that are in their discography that deal with the gardener, but it's like you can only find it out through like lyrical like devices that are like, oh, that's what they're talking about. It's like an interesting concept, and I like lyrics, and that's like I
Yeah.
love I'm a screamo guy myself, but as someone who writes, I just good lyrics are hard to find, especially when most people are either worried about money or just my girlfriend left me, boo hoo, boo boo boo. It's just it's hard to find substance in a sea of people just trying to get famous or what works.
Yeah. I mean, I can't even imagine what do you write about if you just want to be famous? Like even if there was an answer for that, like I don't
Money
know,
and bitches.
money and bitches.
That'd
Like
be an interesting limousine song. What about money?
no, I had so okay, I have a lot of ideas. This is the first time I've had ideas like where I need a notepad near me because I'll come up with stuff. It's been a few years since I've let myself do that. Where like something pops in my head and I'm able to actually say like, "Ooh, that's a good title," or "That's a good concept," and kind of getting back into that mindset that I was in for my entire life before. I kind of purposely shut it off.
Yeah.
So I'm happy that my brain is starting to kind of like rewire and make those connections again, where I want to make stuff. Um,
I mean,
because I
you got a great motivation, man. You're not doing it for you anymore. You want to show your daughter. You want to show,
yeah,
any
well,
other future kids you may have that daddy gets down on stage.
well, Daddy gets down in the bedroom because we got another one coming in February, so that's
Oh,
Daddy number two.
congratulations. That's awesome. See? Now
Yeah,
you got to make that music. They got to see what dad does.
yeah, yeah, and 2.5 might be a little young for like core memory. I'm not sure if she's gonna remember being on stage with me the other day, but I will. And
Yeah.
and I got lots of pictures and video to show her. But but yeah, I'm back to that point where like I have a notepad in my car now for the little stoplight ideas, and I've been recording voice notes for the first time in a while and sending them over. I mean, if one thing I would love, maybe so this is on record, right? So maybe like if I die, right, and I have 10 years worth of voice notes of song ideas, maybe you can be one of the people that helps sift through them and make something cool out of them.
Hell
Would you
yeah,
do that?
dude.
Okay,
Yeah,
so it's on it.
I'd gladly do that for you because
I have
I
so many.
mean,
I mean, just years and years and years of ideas where it's like, okay, I have a chorus, or now I have a verse, but that's it. And
yeah.
there's probably 100 song ideas in there. Like,
It, it's like a weird thing to like brag about. Like I don't know how I wouldn't call it bragging, but Jordan Blake, he was the singer of A Skylit Drive, the original one. He recently passed away from he was
yeah, so I
diabetic.
saw your post about that.
Yeah, and I help run Blake Cult 86. It's like kind of like a memorial legacy page. And unfortunately, and he had to deal with this. He was mostly just known as the singer from A Skylit Drive. It didn't he had like easily, 6, 7 bands that he did after that. Like he had like something that was similar to the Limousines, a little more crunk core. It was like Watch Out, There's Ghosts. It didn't blow up. All his other bands didn't really blow up, but with that like Instagram that I run, it's kind of like a memorial page. I try to bring focus to all the music he did, and it's like a Skylar Drive. Like he loved that band and everything it did for him, but it did kind of bum him out that people don't really. I kind of work. I like this the way this sounds.
Yeah.
I wish people would get down, but it's like one of those unfortunate things because like he was my buddy. Like we used to talk all the time. He'd call me up at like 2 a.m. just asking like random shit. He'd be like, "Dude, I'm about to play Blue Ridge. What do I do?" I'm like, "Dude, I've never even played a festival. What are you asking me for?"
Yeah.
But I mean, doing these podcasts and stuff, I've met a lot of cool musicians and just like you hear you even ask, like, bro, if I send you some shit, can you make sure maybe like make a song just so my 30-year-old son has something to listen to?
Yeah. No, it's just like, I mean, I feel like because imagine if like in the 60s or 70s, every single songwriter had a tape recorder in their pocket, like a little tiny tape recorder, but like how we have a musician's iPhones are full of voice notes that I don't know. There's got to be just thousands and thousands. I think about all the great songs that don't get finished of
Hmm.
all these artists. It doesn't matter how big or small you are. You have ideas that are cataloged that even you probably forget about, and then kind of a cool idea just to think like what could happen with all those.
Did I open my Fruity Loops, my FL Studios, as they call it nowadays, as the kids say. But I open it up. I'll open up old projects. I'm like, where was I when I made this? Like, I wasn't here. And
That's exactly what you were asking me about earlier about the process of writing lyrics. That's the feeling like when you go through your old voice notes and some of them are like, fuck, this is good. Like, how come I never used this?
mhm.
And so you might have a song that did blow up and it was big, and people will ask you, like, what were you thinking when you wrote this? And you don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't know where it came from.
Oh yeah. I mean, I have songs that I'd like to write sequels to because I mean, I grew up watching movies, and unfortunately, a lot of movies that we get are sequels. And a lot of time, like the ones that we grew up with, because I'm 34, so I grew up with some good sequels. I think maybe not the Jurassic Park ones, but the Raiders of the Lost Ark, they got lucky sometimes.
Yeah.
But like, I think in like a songwriting way. Like I feel like when you approach a song, if you were wanting to do a sequel, I haven't done one. I want to do one, but I would feel like you could read over those lyrics and either try to let's use Back to the Future as an example. So in the first one, he goes back to the 50s, tries to stop his mom, blah blah blah, and then the second one, it's kind of the same thing, but he goes to the future, but then he has to go back to the past. So you get kind of like the same vibes from the first one. They give you these totally new vibes, but it's
Yeah.
kind of like the same structure and plot and the way it's delivered. And you got to get back.
Generally, you always want to fuck your mom. That's the theme, right?
There we go.
Yeah.
Piece by piece, part two.
Well, I wonder, like, yeah, like, I wonder what I would think if I were to read those lyrics from 23 years ago, which were kind of, to me, they were about like losing the organic bits, um, getting rid of getting rid of the natural parts of yourself, like the parts you didn't choose,
Hmm.
and replacing them with like designing yourself, which I
Yeah.
guess is what we're all doing that now. Like custom realities we're living in. Um,
So if you read the lyrics to I Will Breathe Fire, would you just like go drink some gas and start like shooting fire or?
dude, I would have to. I'm not familiar with that song. Like when you said the name, I can hear it, but I have no idea what the words are. So I would have to go literally read those just to know what the lyrics are.
I just
If
I don't
if you asked
do
me
I
to perform that song right now, I would not be able
all I know is your vocals kick ass in that song. Do I remember all the lyrics
to.
to that song? Do I remember a verse? Do I remember the whole chorus? I think the chorus is just I will breathe fire and you're just kind of like going hard as fuck, like just like going ham, just like
Yeah,
it's good shit.
that's dude,
It's
that physical, like the physical feeling of just like barfing noise out. Like it wasn't screamo. Like it wasn't like the type of screaming that became, the proper way to scream, right?
Yeah.
What was the name of that thing?
What?
During like the screamo days, there was like everyone was trying to teach each other how to scream properly.
There's fry vocal, which it's
Yeah,
kind of like that. It kind of has that noise, and you'll hear like kill switch engage or something like that. They have like kind of more like that pterodactyl screech. It's just that accessing that distortion in your like vocal folds, they
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
get that noise. And like nowadays, you got everybody like overproducing their stuff, so where they sound like dark gremlins from like the zombie land dragon lords or whatever, or it just sounds like how are you gonna do that live? You're not sick.
that
You
was. I remember being in the studio and like the way I would scream would be like hard, like loud, painfully. I'd really feel it because I grew up like my favorite singer was Kurt Cobain when I was growing up, and like
yeah.
I'm sure he did it properly, but the way I
No.
was the way I was screaming, like I couldn't sing the high parts of a song and scream.
Yeah.
I'd blow my voice out. I had voice problems all the time because I was just like, to me it was more important to be uh, I don't know, like,
Visceral.
yeah, just I wanted to feel the stuff that I was putting out,
Yeah.
experiencing.
I mean,
And
back then there was no guidance on it. Like Melissa Cross, like she came to prominence in like 2007, 2008, like the mid 2000s, like trying to teach proper screaming. But it's just like these are all niche underground bands, and this is a niche vocalist trainer. So
yeah,
that didn't all circulate till YouTube till like the 2010s and 2000, like from on
and
then
by
on, it
by
was
then we had all
easier.
blown ourselves out. Like
Oh
that was
yeah,
why
like
bands had to have a screamer and a singer and not both,
yeah, that's
but then you had someone like Craig Owens who would just go out there and do both.
just flex on everybody, and you're just sitting there like,
Yeah,
how,
wow.
like,
And he's still doing it.
yeah, that's the homie. I love Craig. Craig's awesome people, but we're talking about blown out voices, which brings me to when I discovered you, which was on the tour with Team Sleep, Sonny Moore, and Strata. And I saw
Mm-hmm.
y'all at the boardwalk, and that was a time where, like, if people don't know who Sonny Moore is, maybe you've heard of Skrillex, but he was in a band from First to Last, and that's the record right there. But he suffered from vocal nodules, and he had like two surgeries, like kind of like a year apart, while being the vocalist of that band, which kind of forced him to do a little more down-tuned EDM bedroom pop kind of glitch, a glitch sound, with his voice being a little more like less competitive over heavy breakdowns and screaming vocals and stuff like that.
Yeah,
And
I
I
remember
feel
being
like,
on tour with him, and he had his shitty little plastic MacBook, and he would sit, on the couches backstage and just be like playing in whatever Fruity Loops or Garage Band or whatever else he was messing with. But he'd be like, "Hey, come listen to this," and he was showing me, the genre that he basically. I don't know if he created dubstep, but what he became known for.
yeah.
He would show us the stuff, like, look what I made, and we'd sit there, put the headphones on, listen, and be like, that's fucking weird, dude. Like, good job. Some of it, like, you would go and listen to it in the car or bus or whatever, and just throughout that tour, you saw him creating, what became Skrillex, and like,
And just so, and in case anybody doesn't know, Team Sleep, that's Chino from Deftones' side project. And
yeah.
if
So there, that did we talk about this the last time
the
I
last
was
time
on
you
your
were here,
show?
yeah, I believe, if
The
I
skateboarding,
recall,
like we got
you guys
busted
went
together.
skateboarding.
Yeah.
You'd walk along the railroads and take pictures of some elegant things.
Dead
But
dogs. Yeah. That was a
that
dark. That was a fucking weird, dark thing that was happening.
was a dark interview. I'm not gonna lie. You're on it. Like, I think you were maybe like the fourth or fifth like big name that we had gotten, not like a local band that I knew from like the scene that I was in. You were like one of the people that I like grew up watching and listening to, and I was like, wow, this guy's kind of dark. I get it, but at the same time, you could say something really dark and grisly like that, but then you would say something like, oh, I don't think playing complex instrumentation is that big of a deal. If I shoved an apple up my ass and started
Oh
singing,
fuck! It was
would you
yeah, it
be
was that one.
impressed? which
That was
became
the
the longest running joke. I can't tell you how many like there's like 120 episodes of the Demo Team podcast out. I'm pretty
I
sure in at least 20 or 30 episodes we reference that. It's just the
the
funniest thing I've ever heard.
the Apple, yeah. No, that's I still apply that in anything I do songwriting wise. I have always I'm not impressed by how hard it is to do. You know,
Hmm.
like my cousin Johnny played piano with Strata for a while, and he is capable of playing like he's a concert pianist. He will play literally anything, uh, as complicated and perfectly as any human can. And I think that's amazing, and I love listening to it. When it comes to songwriting, that's not what's going to make it work. Like hey, it's really scattered and there's a lot of notes everywhere, and it's really hard to do this. When you're just listening to it, you're not going to be like, okay, well, I don't like how it sounds, but it's hard, so I guess it's good.
Yeah.
You know, and
I mean,
that's where that Apple analogy comes from. But I definitely still apply that in a lot of things in life. Like it doesn't have to be difficult for you to be proud of yourself. It doesn't have to be difficult for it to be good.
mhm. I
Um,
feel
some
I feel like
sometimes it's natural.
I feel like the only time that doesn't apply is when you get like a sick saxophone player to like shred at the end of your song, which I believe you guys did on Internet Killed the Radio Star, I want to say, or
No, no, that's on. We have a song called "Fool's Gold" where this guy Adam Beach.
That's right, that's right. I love that song.
Yeah, he plays a solo on that. He does it live for us. He did it last weekend, and we're going to do it again. What's crazy is the way that solo was made is he came into the studio with Gio and played for I don't know an hour or something, just just wailing, and Gio cut that up and made that solo, like arranged it, and then had Adam play it again. So the way that was written was like, yes, of course we appreciate the musicianship of what it takes to just like wail on a solo, but at the same time
The whole
that
song's
hindsight.
not going to be a solo.
No, and then like the hindsight of like now that's done. Now we can analyze it, we can cut it up, and we can make it into what we want it to be. You know,
Hmm.
and that's what songwriting really is. It's like you get the
Focusing.
emotion out, then afterwards you focus, and afterwards you take out the extra stuff and you cut the fat, and you know maybe add some repetition that didn't feel natural at first.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I feel like Fool's Gold is freaking amazing. I love that song. Like that song and Love is a Dog from Hell is just my top two favorites off of that album. It's just good
Nice
stuff.
Bukowski ripoff.
Uh, I think that's something you and Craig Owens share in common. You have a fond love of Bukowski, and you shove it into your music. And I don't think there's anything wrong with shoving literary references in music. Like some people will be like, "Oh, you just stole someone else's ideas." It's like, well, did Bukowski write the vocal melody? I don't think so.
What well, I mean, what is stealing now anyway? Like when it comes
Right?
to art, like I I love how hip hop is all based off of like the sampling and reimagining and like Shannon. What's the guy's name that does Ronnie Radke? Yeah, Falling Reverse. I don't know why I couldn't think of that, but that guy is fucking amazing. And like the fact that he could take a song that was 15 years old, while when he does his reimagining, like the piano versions of these old songs, and take something that's like the original version is something like I would have laughed at back in the day. It's like whatever, like kind of trite and just like very what everyone else was doing at the time. But then sit down at the piano and play it like a fucking angel.
Yeah.
I don't know that. I mean, that guy catches a lot of flack, but he's probably one of the most talented people right now.
Yeah.
And
I think dating a pro
that takes a lot of
wrestler.
balls.
Yeah. I think dating a
Wait,
pro wrestler kind of gets him in that mindset where he's got to play a character and it's got to be just
oh, yeah, I don't know anything about him like personally, but yeah, like just the range the guy shows, um, the balls it takes to take one of your own songs and do a better version of it. I think it's an interesting thing to do.
well,
You know,
when we get in Piece by Piece reimagined part two.
I maybe we'll do it because you said that. Maybe we'll do a piano version of it.
I mean, I think if anybody can do something cool with piano and reimagining, I think you've done so much innovative and like unique, interesting stuff that's totally like original to you because it's like you were doing like you were transitioning to like a different scene before it was like, oh, every frontman that used to be in a band does that now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No, that's definitely. I remember when it was so weird, like having to explain to people that like the Limousines was just two people. First off, it was just a guy on a computer and a guy that sings, and then MGMT, became huge.
yeah.
And then nowadays, like if uh if you actually can tell that someone's singing on stage, in a pop act,
Hmm.
like that's rare. Like, oh shit, the mic's on. That's cool because it seems like everyone's just lip syncing and it's all just very fake. Um, but in a way, I don't care anymore. I look at it as like people are there to celebrate the music. The same reason they'll go to like a Skrillex show. They're paying a couple $100 for like to see Sonny hit play on that computer, and just like you're celebrating the music he made and you're looking at him, he's right there, and the lights are crazy. I mean, that at some point you just have to surrender yourself to the fact that like that's still an experience. The fact that it's not difficult, they don't have apples up their asses, they have computers, they're just they're celebrating the music, they're celebrating each other, they're having a good time. That's what the whole fucking thing is about, right? So I
Hmm.
don't care how hard it is for the guy who's on stage to do what he's doing. I'm not there to revel in like amazement at his skill. I'm there to hang out with my friends, and I'm there to fucking, listen to some loud music and dance around and have a good time because there's not a whole lot else to get excited about these days, you
Yeah.
know.
We just had all this like taken away from us for like a year or two, a year and a half, like straight. You can't have any of it. So I'm a little
Yeah.
more inclined to just enjoy stuff and not complain and worry about scene politics and shit like that.
I
It's
mean, imagine going back 10 years and just like knowing that there was going to be a day where like for a year you can't gather a large crowd in a room,
yeah,
you can't have a concert, you can't do any of this stuff, and like how much more would you appreciate it if you knew that it was a thing that could be taken away? First off, that's kind of crazy to think about. And
yeah,
then yeah, like if you invited me, hey man, like come over on Friday, we're gonna turn all the lights off, gonna have like 50 people in the room, and then I'm gonna crank up the stereo and we're just gonna like take turns with the aux cable showing each other music, and we're gonna flash some lights or something. Like that sounds like a typical weekend night at my house. I'm looking at a disco ball in my living room right now. Like, you
yeah.
can see it. Got
As
my
you can
mom on the.
see, I like colors.
Yeah, like that's what we used to do. Is just like no one was playing music, but we had a stereo going and we were enjoying loud music together. So who
See,
gives a fuck
I
like how
grew up
hard
in
it
the
is to do it?
90s. I grew up in the 90s, and while I didn't do that, I didn't do it in the 90s. I know how people had fun in the 90s. They had a black light, glow in
Yep.
the dark posters, sticky stars on the roof, and something that made light. And then you had your time machine that
You had
took
your
care of stuff.
and you had the magic eye posters.
Yeah, yeah, I remember those. That's that.
I hope they make a comeback because like as far as analog things, like they weren't screens, but you could like go into them. It's so weird.
I think that should be Limousine's aesthetic now. Just the 90s Spencer's gifts store.
Perfect.
just just big gnomes with long beards with like real long pipes smoking and a glow in the dark black light poster just
Yeah,
smoking on a mushroom.
free butt free butt plug with purchase. I love it.
Oh yeah, man. Spencer's been looking out for everybody for a long time.
Branded butt plugs. That's the new thing.
I mean, have you been in a Spencer's or a Hot Topic in the last like couple years?
The last time I went to one, I remember it being like way more pink and like bright colored and
A lot more
not
anime.
goth. I guess the definition of goth has totally changed too since I was like
Well, you got
younger,
pastel goth now. You know, it's kind of like
which
more
I'm kind
bubbly
of
and color.
into. I
Yeah,
kind of like
I'm not opposed. Like, whatever they sell at Hot Topic, it's still cool. I just get a little depressed going to the band wall, and it's just like
it. What is it?
it's radio rock bands like Metallica, Nirvana, maybe the Killers, and
Classic
you'll
rock.
have a Falling in Reverse, maybe Motionless and White, My Chemical Romance, Fall Out Boy, and then it's just all anime, all TV, all Cartoon Network, Adult Swim shows. It's video games, it's belts, it's all the
Yeah.
stuff that was on the side when I was growing up in Hot Topic, when the band shirts used to take up like one whole side of the store. And now it's kind of just like it'd be like a wall like this small that has like just band shirts. And it's mostly just bands that are just like so big that you could find their shirt at Walmart. Like, why would you go to Hot Topic for that shirt?
Yeah. Hey, maybe you
It's
can answer a question for me. I've been wondering.
what's up?
Um, what's with the crossing eyes in porn? What is that? I'm old.
Um,
I'm old
there's
now. I'm disconnected. What
are
is
you
it?
familiar with Japanese manga?
No.
You're not familiar with Japanese manga. Are you familiar with the term hentai?
I've heard it, but I don't know what it is.
That is Japanese anime adult content.
Okay.
It's like comic books, like like Dragon Ball Z, all that. Like, yeah. In Japan, they have these things called dojin and hentai in any way. It's naked ladies that are animated, that are Japanese cartoons that are, it's adult content focused towards, But anyway,
Naked
the
cartoon.
cross-eye thing,
Why do they do that?
that's a facial expression called a higao. Uh,
I love it. I just asked you, like, I had a feeling you would know, and now I'm
well,
getting schooled. I love it.
yeah, I'm definitely that guy, I guess. I grew up on the internet. I've been on the internet since I'm 13. I'm 34 now, so that's like 21 years on the internet. So,
That'll
uh,
do it. That'll do
yeah, I've seen some stuff, but
it. I've been to E-Bomb's world. I know.
man, I miss the back Afro Ninja doing the backflip and eating shit. Just, that shit's great. I miss E-Bombs World. That was a great time.
I saw some
Newgrounds.
stuff. I saw some stuff on there that I still like. That's in my head still.
Yeah, we that first
Like,
war, after 2001, it just made a lot of weird stuff on the internet readily available.
yeah. Ugh. I feel that I definitely like. It's weird to be older now and be okay with being older.
Hmm.
Like, I don't have a problem admitting. Like, I was talking to Shannon, my wife, about how I've technically been alive in 6 decades.
Hmm.
Like, that's weird. 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 10s, and 20s.
Yeah.
That's nuts. And how much has changed. And, like, just, I'm finally to the point now where I feel comfortable on a thing I know strangers are going to see publicly, admitting that, you know, I'm not in touch with what's happening with a lot of like younger kids anymore. And like, I don't know. I hope that that happens to you at some point, or to everybody, where at some point you embrace just being a fucking old piece of shit.
I mean, I went into a Walmart toy section, and while getting older, it definitely there's tons of reminders. You see tons of new stuff or new fads, new trends, and you're just kind of like, that's what kids are into nowadays. But you
Yeah.
walk into any toy section, there's still Transformers, there's still Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, there's still He-Man, there's still wrestlers. There's still tons of reminders, and I kind of like, while I hate, I'm not much of a capitalist or into corporate stuff, but IPs that have existed and endured through time that kind of just
Yeah.
remind me of simpler times. And like my girlfriend, she's got like an 8-year-old kid, so it's kind of just like, well, what do you show a kid? Well, I'll show them Batman. I'll show them Ninja Turtles. I'll go to the things that I liked when I was a little boy that kept me entertained. Maybe it'll work for this kid. And 9 times out of 10, it works, where it's just kind of like, oh, wow, Old Faithful.
Well, have you discovered Bluey yet?
Oh, yeah, I like it. I don't think he
Bluey's great.
likes it, though. He
Well,
doesn't
like
like it.
that's the thing. Like our old shows, like He Man and Transformers and GI Joe, it was all good versus evil.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then like your generation stuff was like SpongeBob, where it's like
Man,
super complicated.
I'm a little older than that.
Okay, well, like complicated
My
characters and like
generation would be
story
like
arcs.
Power Rangers and
Okay, Power Rangers. Yeah, makes sense.
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like that was what school, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle, Power Rangers, Pokemon. Yeah, that was like what was popular to me in like grade school.
I feel like my generation stuff are just so fucking stupid, so simple. You know, just good guy,
Transformers
bad.
is dope, dude.
No,
Don't
it's
you
great, but it's very like good guy, bad guy. Like not a whole lot else. You know,
not super but I mean Thundercats was pretty tight. You can't deny
Thundercats was
that.
great. I love
Yeah, that
Thundercats.
stands the test of time. They just put the old anime on TV and they're just like, we don't need to update this. They make
Yeah,
updates to it, but they're just like, we're gonna put the old stuff on because that's just fire. Cats that fight. Come on. They're
yeah.
all buff as
I
hell.
gotta check that out. Snarf.
Yeah, there
Remember
you go.
Snorks?
Yeah, I remember
Watch a
Snarks.
Snorks,
They were like the Brand X Smurfs.
which is like what GoBots were to the Transformers.
Yeah, you got the Brand X, great value version, the cheaper,
Yeah,
easier to afford toy.
discount robot.
Yeah, gotta love a discount robot. He does all the stuff that the other one does. Maybe doesn't have as much articulation, but
Right.
he's there to change before your eyes.
That's fun.
I love nostalgia. Nostalgia is cool. I mean, it's definitely weird because like growing up when I was in my 20s and stuff, I could see it for my parents' generation. They're trying to lure people to like 80s night or disco night, and now it's emo night, and
Yeah,
there's new metal night, and it's just kind of like, oh God, it's
it's
this
weird that
ride's
like
getting
now
faster.
they're calling people emos, which it's kind of strange.
It's very weird because when I was in high school, while emo was a term to people like me who wore like tight pants, had the scene hair and all that,
Yeah,
it was like, I'm not emo, dude. I'm scene. Like,
right.
I'm
Yeah,
trying to like, fight so hard not to be, because it was derogatory. You
yeah,
had musicians who hated the term. You had people that embraced it that were like maybe a little too into it, and they dress like they live at Hot Topic, where you're kind of just like, I don't want to be associated with that, which was like you were saying with the screamo tag. You didn't want to be
yeah.
associated with it because it's kind of just like, well, that's not who I am. That's not what I do.
It's yeah. It seemed like you're commercializing aggression, and the aggression was so natural. So it's like, what do you mean you're going to call it a genre based on like screaming? That's weird.
Yeah.
But
But
yeah, like at work, I work for the government. I'm a government employee now, and that's crazy. But I love it. I love my job. I think I have fun. Come here, come here. My kid's up. She was taking a nap, and now she's running around. But like at work, I'll have like random ass people come up to me. Come here, come here. They'll come up to me and they'll be like, "Oh, I heard you used to be a rock star." And I'll be like, first off, I'll punch you in the mouth for saying that. Like back in the day, the word rock star was so derogatory. Like that's not, you don't call somebody a rock star. That a rock star is a person who's playing a club and they're acting like they want to be treated like they're playing at a stadium. That's a
yeah,
rock star, right? It's not
yeah,
somebody who like. So
big
I would say,
britches.
yeah, I made a living making music for a little while, and I got to travel. It was really cool. Come here, come here. Say hi to my friend. Hi.
This is adorable.
She's like suddenly being all shy. But yeah, like being called a rock star or even like I don't know, like hearing people being called emos is so weird. Like,
Yeah, I get it. I mean, nowadays, every term, every genre, like I embrace every single one because it leads somewhere. You know what I mean? Like hashtags can just help people. Because nowadays, I feel like I can't apply like the derogatory nature that it was, because back then it was like, people didn't want the label and all that. Nowadays, it's kind of just like it helps people like identify just like that culture, because it's kind of like when like my grandma or my mom are like, you're playing that Pokemans kind of thing,
yeah.
where it's just like they didn't understand it. It's like, oh, you're watching Dragon Ball Z, but they call it Pokemans, or they call it
Pokemans.
Digimon.
That's how
It's just
Shannon Dowd says it. But it's kind of like being called a hippie back in the day. I'm sure at one point that was a cool thing to be, and then it's not. What, baby? Like, I don't know. I guess that's one of the pleasures of getting older is realizing that like every generation does exactly the same thing.
Just
exactly the
slightly
same.
different. The hair is
Well, yeah,
different.
there's a variation on it, but like, be like watching people get jobs and be regular dads and moms, and like, I don't know. There's something really, really pleasant about the idea that like, oh, we thought we were so special, this generation, but we're just like all the other ones, and that's kind of nice, right? Like
Yeah, yeah.
we're just a parade of dipshits going into the ground.
That's us. Full speed.
Yeah.
Well, we've gone about an hour. I don't want to take up all your time. You got your daughter and all that. Is there
Yeah.
anything that you wanted to plug or push or remind
Well,
people or
if they're in the San Francisco area, we have a September 1st show at the Rickshaw Stop Pop Scene. We're doing a really cool kind of production of we created these stereoscopic cameras, and we're going to be projecting in 3D everything
oh
that's
my,
happening on stage, and then people are going to have 3D glasses to go with it. So
that's really cool.
yeah, and it'll be our first headlining gig in a long time where we're actually going to play most of our two albums. And there's no openers, so we're just going to play a good long set and
That's what's up.
embrace every second of it, and then hope that our cars have not been broken into by the time we get out.
Yeah, that's an alarming issue that's going on these days.
Yeah.
I always recommend have air tags. That way you can always like GPS and find your stuff. If someone runs off with your equipment, you can just go pick it up real quick.
Yeah.
That
Just go get a
happened
gun.
to the Kaunashi and Origami Button were on tour with Hail the Sun, and they had their van stolen, but they put air tags, like they just loaded it up, like all their
Yeah.
equipment, the van, and they were able to drive up to their stolen van and steal it back. Unfortunately, they lost about like $10,000 worth of merch, but they were able to get their van back, which is like another $20,000, $30,000, God knows what.
Yeah.
That they saved themselves. So I mean, yeah, definitely everyone protect your stuff.
Yeah. No,
Hire a
definitely.
guy to sleep in your van.
Yeah, $5. That's probably a good something to pay them. But
Yeah,
yeah,
he'll
San Francisco's kind of scary right now, but we'll be okay.
I believe in y'all. And I can't wait to see footage from that. I don't know if I can make it out to San Diego. I was in
San,
Sacramento in like
San
June.
Francisco.
San Francisco.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I
Yeah.
know. But I would say I was in Sacramento like last June. I drove all the way out from I live in Arizona now, and I was living in Mexico before that. So I did like a 18-hour drive from like Mexico to Sacramento, and that was like the longest I've ever been sitting in a car just driving.
Oh
So
man.
from Arizona to San Francisco, I think it would be
I
long.
I
What I
drove to I drove to Tempe just for fun a few years ago
yeah.
to surprise a friend of mine that was not having a he's having like a mental crisis, and I wanted to go say hi. Um,
Well, if you're ever near Mesa, I'm always in mental crisis. If you want to come
hey,
visit.
yeah, now you guilt me into it.
No, I'm
No,
kidding.
but yeah, it'd be fun if you could make it out of San Francisco
Hell yeah, dude.
and
If
see a show.
you ever need to hit up somebody who books shows out in Arizona, I know plenty of people. It'd be cool to see you come play out in Arizona with the Limousines or Strata or anything, but hey, man, get down straight back together.
Yeah, no, now I'm in that kind of mindset where I might actually want to go spend the week, be a weekend warrior for real, like go out play some shows outside of the state.
That's what's up.
Because our biggest markets are New York and Houston and
The
other part.
hubs.
Actually, almost everywhere in Texas is big for us, so we definitely want to get it back out there.
Hell yeah, dude. I like to hear that. And I feel like from the last time we spoke to now, I feel like you have like a brighter disposition towards music. I feel like our
Yeah,
first interview, you kind of just like, I mean, it's no secret. I mean, you're very open about your musical career that, record labels have kind of chewed on your creative spirit in the past and kind of tried to spit you out. But I'm glad that, the determination, the fire is still there and you won't let something like that keep you down.
yeah. Just knowing I'll never sign anything again will be that's enough for me.
It's good advice, dude. Because the way the world's set up now, with all the social medias and all the things, it may seem more spread out, but it's more it's more intuitive to the DIY artist that knows
Yeah,
what they need to do to get themselves out there, which is just communicating and just constantly just keep reaching. The only person that can stop you is you, and the moment you stop, that's when it stops. That's when everything
yeah,
stops.
yeah. I've definitely realized that all the slowdowns in my life have been things that chose. I chose to quit or I chose to walk away numerous times. So it's like never been anyone's fault but mine. So,
And
but
it takes
with
a
the
real
with the
man to admit
positive,
that. It
yeah,
takes it
they're
takes
not
a real man
necessarily
to admit.
mistakes.
Yeah, it's better than pointing fingers and like saying it's everyone else's fault. But I mean, your own musical journey is your own, and you have a good motivator, and you got another one to show off all your skills to. So I'm very happy to hear, man. I'm
Yeah,
proud of you. I can't wait to see you keep on doing stuff. I can't wait to hear no more new music. This has been Warp Taste Podcast. This has been Eric Victorino of Strata, the Limousines. Great man, great author, great father. Thank you for your time, Eric.
thank you, sir. Good
Awesome.
talking with you.
I'm gonna hit stop recording.
Yeah.